Today I'm going to talk about the M1895 Boer Mauser carbine. We've spoken about the Boer Mauser rifles before, but in this instance we're going to talk about a carbine. Now there were 7,000 of these Mauser carbines made for the Boer republics. All 7,000 were made for the ZAR, which is the Zuid-Afrikaanse Republic, or the Transvaal. The first order was for 5,000 of these carbines. They were all made by Ludwig Loh and Company. And on the left hand side of the receiver you can see MOD Mauser 1896. As I said, they made 5,000. They were all shipped off to the Transvaal, or the ZAR, in September 1896. Later on they placed a second order, which is for another 2,000 carbines, and these ones were not made by Ludwig, but they were made by Deutsche Waffen- und Munitionfabriken in Berlin. That's, as we not commonly know, DWM. So the next lot obviously was stamped DWM on the side of the receiver rail. Now this particular carbine is very nice in as much as it's all matching serial numbers. It's a DWM carbine. It's number 6654 serial number, which matches on the bolt as well as on the cleaning rod. And not often do you get the cleaning rods to match, because as you probably know, to clean your rifle or your carbine, you had to join two cleaning rods together. So once you and your buddy had cleaned your rifle, cleaned your bore, you just grabbed a cleaning rod and stuck it back into the carbine. Now, having said this, these were actually made as an artillery carbine and or a cavalry carbine. You can see it's got the bayonet boss on the end here. The Boers didn't actually use bayonets, although there were 50 odd that were initially ordered as samples. And as I've got in my books, there were another 500 odd that were ordered, but they never reached South Africa due to the British blockade of Lorenzo Marx after the war had started. So these were actually ordered for the ZAR Start Artillery, and that's the state artillery of the ZAR Republic. And you can see many photos, and we'll show you some of the artillerists with these carbines. And as I said, they were all ZAR because they weren't ordered by the OVS. Now, having said that, they were also issued to normal burghers, ordinary burghers, and also a lot were given to the foreign volunteers. There were over 2,000 foreign volunteers who made their way to South Africa and or were living in South Africa, the likes of the Hollander Corps, the German Corps, etc., etc. We've also seen burghers from the Free State with these carbines. Now, given that they were not ordered by the Free State, we can only assume that during the war there was some swapping going on between Boers, or shipments were made that we're not aware of, or obviously when someone had died or was wounded, that rifle or carbine would be given to somebody else. But as I said, 7,000 in total, so there were 5 times more rifles than there were carbines. Now to the name. As you know, I like names on British and Boer rifles. We've got a very deep carving here of J.W.Cronje. A lot of English people think that it's Cronje, but in actual fact it's pronounced cronier. Now, cronier is a fairly common name in South Africa. To give you some idea, there were 155 burghers named cronier who were captured and sent to POW camps. There were 26 who died of wounds and or died in action during the war. Another 6 died in prisoner of war camps. And there were 77 men named cronier who applied for the ABO campaign medals after 1921. That's the Anglo-Boer Oorlog campaign medal, which you'll see. I have one here on your right. As I mentioned, the name on this carbine is J.W.Cronje. Now, researchers told us, and I must thank Elria Wessels and Elnie Watson for their help in doing some of this research, as well as a gentleman named MC Hiernis who has helped us with photographs. This was Johannes Willem Cronje. He gave his address as the farm Noupoort. He was born on the 30th of the 4th month of 1862. He ended up being a Bittereinder. That means a Bittereinder. He was one of the men who fought to the bitter end of the war. He served under General Alberts, who was of the Heidelberg Commando. General Alberts actually started the war as an ordinary burgher. He went into Natal, the early battles in Natal. He then moved over to the Free State and also into the Transvaal. He worked his way up from commandant to eventually the rank of general. He served under Louis Botha in the Eastern Transvaal. So although many Boers did change their commandos, we have to assume that for a large part of the time, Cronier actually fought under General Alberts, which is what he stated. Alberts surrendered his arms after the peace conference in May 1902, and Cronier says the same thing. He surrendered his carbine in June 1902. Now, we found that Mr. Cronier was actually married. He was married in 1886 to a lady called Christina Petronella Jasmina van Aswegen. They had one child who was named after the father. Now, these little carbines, as I mentioned, they're fairly rare. There were only 7,000 of them. They were highly prized by British officers and colonial officers. And in my books, I've got several photos of colonial officers and men using carbines actually in action, where they'd use a carbine in preference to their own carbine and or rifle. So they were highly prized by officers and men. And I've had many accounts, quite a few in my books, of people capturing Boers and capturing carbines and being delighted with this. Now, this particular carbine was obviously captured by a British officer because it ended up in the UK. It's got British reproof marks on the barrel, which tells us that was the case. Dealer records going back to about 1973-74 state that this carbine, together with some other rifles, Boer rifles as well as lee-metfords, lee-enfields, etc., came from the estate of Lord Athol in Scotland. When he passed away, he sold a lot of his firearms, and quite a few of those ended up coming to Australia, this being one of them. Now, a few other bits and pieces I can tell you. We'll show you that when these carbines were issued, they came with a front sight protector, which we'll show you, and it also came with a muzzle protector and front sight protector. There were two different things. The front sight protector was fitted with a small pin which you could take out, and most of the carbines that I've come across have had that removed. In addition to the carbines versus the rifles, with the serial numbers of the rifles, as you may know, there was an A series, a B series, and then some of the rifles to the OVS had an OVS prefix. These carbines had no prefix. They were numbered 1 straight through to 7,000. So that's the story. As I said, Boer Mauser carbine, they are fairly scarce. They are lovely little weapons. I've really enjoyed having mine. We'll show you a few examples. And last but not least, configuration. I nearly forgot. We're going to show you a photograph of what a lot of the burghers did and artillerists. When the carbines came out, this sling swivel on this side of the butt was actually on the left side. However, when you're shooting, if you're a right-handed shooter, if you pick this up to shoot, you've got this sling swivel banging into your jaw, into your cheek. If you're left-handed, it's not so bad. But a lot of the guys simply took the two bolts out and reversed this little sling swivel. Fits very neatly the other way around, and you get a real mismatched combination of some of the guys turned both of them around. The front barrel band also has a sling swivel, as you will see. This particular carbine has the front barrel band with a swivel to the left, and this one has the butt sling swivel to the right. I hope you've enjoyed the story. Thank you.